Pedro mentioned earlier how the importance of centering right holders, and I love that term, and really having women and indigenous communities at the forefront of that. And you're founder of the Women for Water Partnership. So, what do you think our collective efforts need to do to actually deliver tangible results for communities? And what do you see as the role of civil society, particularly women, indigenous people, youth, as we build towards the 2026 UN Water Conference?
Well, I was thinking of making a shopping list and being a typical woman. So I have my list, and if somebody gives me the money, I'll help you with the shopping. Unfortunately, that's not very realistic. But what I did do when I heard about the panel and the question, I talked to some of my colleagues, and I'm going to shorten a lot of people that are up there. But for me, this is very symbolic. The room up there, is full. It was full this morning. The balcony was full. And who spoke? Not at all this morning. Those groups. We could sometimes not even hear. And now we had to wait and sit up there, although we already knew that most of the member states wouldn't come this afternoon, because this is about non-state actors. Guys, don't take away my time. Thank you. But what I did do yesterday and the day before and weeks and months before, I spoke to some people. So I want to acknowledge a few people who are up there, because I'm not sure they're going to be able to speak later. Women in water diplomacy. Stronger together. Aquafed. Water Aid. Butterfly Effect. Youth Caucus. And I can go on. And all these people gave me inspiration and told me stuff. And sometimes it's incredibly difficult to combine. So part of my answer to your question is, it is basically impossible to organize civil society. Because we're too big, too diverse, but we all want to get involved. So the trick is to find a few mechanisms to self-organize ourselves. And so we had a few very good conversations with the co-chairs. I thank them again and again, I don't know whether they're still in the room, for the conversations we had so far, and we'll definitely continue them. One is that we would like to work with some kind of an umbrella system, so that we're going to try and find at least nine major groups, organizations that are willing to help facilitate, help coordinate, and everything else that we can come up with for the two major meetings we're going to have, but especially the preparation process, because that's where the quality is. At least to my mind, the two conferences are not, please not, about quantity. Let's make sure that our preparations are done so well that the people who will be in the room are very well informed, have the trust of the people that they have communicated with, and speak with authority on behalf of the groups that they are representing. If that's what we can achieve, then for me that's golden. A second one, I'm sitting next to at least two bankers, is if you look at it from the perspective of civil society, yes, of course, we would love you to invest more. But what we would love you to even do better is make sure that the money reaches the people who are actually doing the work. Because there is loads and loads of money floating around. But then if our colleagues from OECD do an analysis where it actually ends up, well, oh, 0.05%. You heard me? 0.05. That's not even 1% of the money goes directly to women's organizations that doing all the work, as Pedro is saying. So if we can get that a little bit less bureaucratic and a little bit more efficient and a little bit more timely, I guarantee you we get more work done. So that is my challenge to at least both of you here. Try that. Then there's some very practical things. I highly appreciate, and a lot of my colleagues up there as well, that last minute, some of us got funding to be here. And the fact that the outreach was there and the funding was made available, believe me, we highly, highly appreciate it. However, it was 10 days before the event. Some people do not live near the airport. It takes them a whole day to even get to an airport. Of course, it was conditional. So the phrase was, you can apply if you already have a visa. I understand. It would have been impossible otherwise. But let's not do that for the rest of the process, okay? And if we find money, and I hope we do, to support groups to do first the preparatory work, have their meetings, and also go out to communities and not only have to depend on a website and a mobile phone, no, actually go there. Only 42% of the women and the youth we're talking about have a mobile phone. It's not like it's 100%, no, 42. So what do we do with the other 58? How do we reach them? That's my second big challenge. How do we reach the people who are not connected to the mobile network and the internet, and also get information to them and support to them and involve them in the debate? It probably means that we need to connect to regional or national NGOs or other organizations that can help with that. And you know what? That costs money because they need transport. For one of my members, the best communication tool they ever got was a motorbike. Not a phone, not an internet connection, a motorbike. Because that meant that they could go to the next village and mobilize the people there and talk to them. Because the internet connection is unreliable. If you're lucky, once a week. And then we're all very impatient. We want an answer next day. Well, that's impossible. So, timely information, timely funding, but also give time to the people to prepare. They can't do it the next day. It takes sometimes weeks. So please help us to mobilize people, but also look at our timeline and not at your timeline. And that already would make an enormous difference. So last comment, because otherwise I'm going to run out of time, I see. This morning there was a very interesting proposal from the European Union, and I thank you for that. Because we had been wrestling a little bit in the conversations about how to get more involvement of non-state actors in general in the interactive dialogues, more than the first attempt in 2023. So one thing that we had already proposed is to ask the co-chairs and the possible chairs for the interactive dialogues to appoint a co-facilitator from a non-state actor, at least one per group, to be the communicator with the other non-state actors. And secondly, the EU proposed this morning that the chairs would be asked to set up or appoint a small thematic advisory working group of non-state actors. And I would like to adopt that proposal, if I may, and let's figure out how best we can organize that. And then for the moment, I'll stop here because I could go on for hours.